Okay, so part one of the FK58 will start the engine. And it's kind of interesting because it's completely different than what I've done before. It's all flat. These are the pieces that go in. The black stripes are the cardboard pieces, laser cut pieces. And so I've cut some of the stuff out. There's the basic engine and the back plate for it. And again, the engine is flat, but then you put some other 3D stuff on top of it where those white cylinders are. So I'm really curious to see how it turns out. It's a neat, simple way, but it should look pretty good. So first thing I do was glue on the engine, just making sure that it matches up. There is a top and a bottom, and the cowling is not, or the bulkhead is not exactly like symmetrical. It's kind of got cut off corners at the bottom. It's wide and kind of flat at the bottom. And I'm making sure I got a hole, excuse me, where the little prop shaft will go through. So that's that piece, ready to roll. Then the front crankcase, I roll that with my handle, and it's a conical shape. You can see that white piece is going to be where I add some glue and then use my tweezers and pinch it together like so. So here I've dropped it. No, I've put some glue on there, and then I'm just making sure that I have it squeezed together nice. It wasn't quite even there, so just fix it a little bit. It takes, you have to be quick, but the glue does give you a little bit of time to sort of reconfigure. You can even pull it apart if you must, so it's not the end of the world usually. So got that together, and that's going to fit on that front circular piece that you see on the engine. In the front of that little cone goes the tip where the prop is going to sit. So I put a little glue down in the middle there, and then I just take this little round piece like I do with formers with sometimes with airplanes and boats and things, and just drop it down into the cone and then force it down with some blunt object, usually a handle of a brush, and that makes it flush. And you just gotta be careful you don't glue yourself to the table. But otherwise, that is very simple. And there's the crankcase done. Now, I forgot about one piece. So here just gives you an example of how to cut these pieces out. It's a long rectangular piece, and I line it up real carefully, real sharp blade, and multiple light passes, just like your mother told you. That way you will make sure you get a nice edge. But I just figured I would show that because I haven't really shown that much before. Make sure I color the edges. The edges of all those other pieces I'm putting on, by the way, have been colored with black or gray. That piece gets turned into a little circle, and I wrapped it around, in this case, a X-Acto blade handle, and roll it around, and that little tab becomes where you glue it, just like the front of the crankcase, but this one's just a plain old simple cylinder, which is nice. And again, what you do is overfold. I should have done it some more even, so that it's basically together before you put the glue on. I've seen some of the guys, on the Polish sites, and that's exactly what they do. They spend a lot of time getting the paper to do what they want it to do first. The glue is almost an afterthought. So I could have done this a little bit more to get a better curve in there. But you line it up, you squeeze it shut, and the glue is activated and squished in there. And now you've got a nice part of the base of the crankcase, because that's going to go on once you put that bigger cardboard circle in there. I'm just making sure that it's round, because when you I like to have the tabs actually be separate, because then it makes a better round circle. It's not, so there's not a lump somewhere. But this again is a simplified model, and it's really kind of a breath of fresh air. Those little dots there are going to be where they have to match up. You got to make sure they're facing forward, because those are what's going to be the push rods that go into each of those, two of them into each cylinder, two of the 3D cylinders and two in the back ones. So here I'm putting some glue on the little what will be the front surface, and you can see those little holes are there, or the little dots where the holes are going to be. And it doesn't matter what orientation this goes in, just wants to get it on the correct side. So push that down again. That again is a nice trick because then it's flush automatically and you've got a nice circle because the little laser cut piece or your own hand cut piece is a nice circle, so that's what gives you the form. Notice there's a seam down there. I want to make sure I match up all the seams. In this case, I'm putting the seams on the bottom of the engine. I figure that's easiest. So here I'm just making nomenclature of what is top and what is on the bottom, just so I don't mess up. I have to write these things down because otherwise I will put them on backwards or inverted or whatever. So I have to be very careful. Chemistry was hard for me, I'll put it that way. R and S rotation, never understood it. Okay, so there you go. It fits. So put a little edge glue all around there and just go ahead and put it in that circle. Now they've all got those little holes where the prop shaft's going to go through, so it's kind of important to make sure this is all lined up. So I could have put a prop shaft in there and then lined them up that way. I felt like, this is going so well. I'm making sure the top is top and the bottom is bottom here. Everything's going so well that I'm thinking this is a well-designed little creature, and I think we're going to be just fine as long as we put things follow the lines relatively well. So that's the base part of the crankcase that's on, and looks fine. And here I'm testing. I'm putting that piece of wire through. Sure enough, it goes straight through and down, and there it goes through the bulkhead. So I'm pleased at that point that worked really well. So I don't have to worry about I'm not out of line. Now the top part of that, where this cone fits on, there's an edge there, and I thought that's really dumb. It's just cardboard. So I colored in with what looked like gray. But then when I use my gray, oh yeah, I'm just showing you match up the seams again before you put that on. But then when I looked at the gray, it came out like a greenish weird color. So anyway, that's the way that's going to fit on with a little glue. But I wasn't pleased with that gray edging. I thought it was really dumb. Why is it like that? So I decided in my great wisdom and skill to go ahead and use a black sharp around the edge because that would cover it, look a little better, I think. So I go ahead and put this black Sharpie all around the edge. Spoiler alert, it wasn't necessary. I missed a little ring that goes around there, and completely missed it on the plans. Not the model's fault. Getting cocky. So I put my prop shaft through this piece again, and this piece I definitely want to make sure it goes in line, and just make sure the seams line up, or close enough. And there it is protruding, and so now I'm going to put a little glue on it and set it right down over that hole. And she should line up a treat and be easy and ready to add. And this is all edge gluing, but it's very strong. And again, these models, you're not throwing around the room, you're not flying them. I suppose you could. But these are you don't have to be nutty about strength in some of these things. So now I'm just making sure I put my prop shaft in there. You can see the seams are relatively lined up. I kind of didn't get it perfectly lined up, but it doesn't matter as long as it's good, as long as it's on the bottom half. Take off some of the excess glue that squishes out. I use my little multi-purpose brush there. It's seen better days, but then that works perfectly to get rid of some of the extras. And I'm just making sure it's making contact and it's tight. Looks good. And then here I push this through, and there it goes. So the whole prop shaft is on, it's straight, so when I make it so that it, the propeller spins and everything, it should work out really, really well. Looks good. I'm really, really intrigued to see. I wonder how this is going to turn out, because I'm used to making full engines, full 18 cylinders and all that. There's my seams that aren't perfectly lined up, but they're at least on the bottom part. It's going to be neat, I think. It just feels weird to not be building a complete engine. But there are those little holes that are going to match up there, push rods, and then push rods are going to go into the three-dimensional part. Those white parts are going to be the three-dimensional parts, which are down on the base of the cutting board there. So the cylinders are just rectangles with a little dot on top where I think that's a spark plug. So that's going to go like on the top. And I started shaping these, and that was too big, so I went to my paintbrush. That ended up being too big, and I think I ended up using about a 3/32 piece of aluminum tubing and wrapping it in my finger. Because you want to get those so that they're relatively, they don't have to be perfect, but you do want to get them so that they fit. And that one I think is just a little wide. And so I think I grabbed my little piece of aluminum tubing here and just give it a little bit more, one more little roll, because you don't want white to show, but you want it to be kind of, make sure it's three-dimensional, make sure it's a nice little curve. I think that's actually a little bit better. So kind of test fit it. Again, make sure that in this case the little part for the spark plug has to be up on the tops of the cylinder, so the outside. If you forgot, it wouldn't be the end of the world. No one's going to notice any of this stuff anyway. But once you get that piece done, you grab that. Looks good. And then I go ahead and put a little edge glue on there, just like the crankshaft or the base of the crankcase. Put that on either side. And notice there's nothing on the top or bottom. It's very simple. There's no half moon shapes, nothing like that. Take off some excess glue. And then go ahead and just pick a cylinder and just butt it up against the crankcase and down onto the white parts. And just cover them up. And I think you'll see, especially when it's all done, when I put the push rods in and some wiring harness or something, I think it's going to look pretty good. Now, these are the tops of those 3D cylinders. They're just representations. They're on cardboard, and then little tiny pieces of the from the model of the paper was put onto cardboard, glued onto cardboard, and then that gives you a little bit of a relief kind of situation. So put a little glue down where the tops of those cylinders go. And I got a little too much on there, as usual. And then you just pop that on. Give it a little push. If a little glue squeezes out, remember this will dry clear, so it's not the end of the world. But if too much comes out, absolutely take it off with a brush or a knife or something. But there it is. So what I'm going to do is put all those on the rest of those white places. So that's all you have to do. So fast forward, that's what I've done. And you can see it doesn't look too bad. Kind of impressed. Considering, again, it's going to be in the cowling. It's going to be kind of deep in there. It'll look okay. But now this piece here is the moronic part. Why did that black piece, it looks so dumb? It's because I forgot to put that on. So I went back, I found that on the plans. I cut it out, edge glued it, colored it with a little bit of a Sharpie. And then I dab a little glue on that outside edge, and then go ahead and drop this over, and then just spend the time sort of pushing it down so that it contacts the glue. That's not a huge mistake. It fits, and it's okay to put it on now. But I feel dumb that I went and colored everything, thinking, boy, the model, it's so dumb. Why does it not have that piece on there? It should really have something on there. It did. It also turns out at the very tippy top of the crankcase there with the wire sticking out, it's just plain old cardboard. That is another piece that I neglected to put on. It's just a gray piece, and when you see the engine later, you'll see it's on there. It's just a gray piece I cut out from the plans, and that covers it up a little bit. I mean, the prop's going to be over it anyway, so it won't matter, but it'll look better. Here I just make sure that little ring is on there. It's got little indentations or suggestions of bolts on there. Looks really nice. The artwork on this is phenomenal. It's just, wow, it's three-dimensional. They've got tubing and stuff on the interior that looks like it's tubing, and it's not. It's just flat paper, but they Leonardo da Vinci this one. It's really nice. And I'm just pointing out that's where the little push rods are going to go. And so the next step will be push rods, and maybe a spark plug wire I'm pointing out there where a spark plug might go. And there's your simplified engine. I think it'll be very convincing.